neighbours. One. Do you think neighbours are important?
I think neighbours are very important because they are some of the people that you are around every day. If you ever have a problem, you may need to ask a neighbour for help, since they are right nearby. If you are new in a place, you can always ask a neighbour where to find something, and they are also right there if you are in danger, and knowing they are there might make you stronger or less afraid.
2. What are the qualities of a good neighbour?
I think the most important quality of a good neighbour is friendliness. For example, saying hello when you see each other is a good quality. I often speak to my neighbours and try to be friendly, because one day I might be lonely and sad, and if I have been friendly to my neighbours, they will be friendly to me and cheer me up. I also like for my neighbours to be patient and honest. If I make noise and disturb them, I would like them not to get angry, but to just tell me that the noise is bothering them. I also think neighbours should be polite and not disturb each other unnecessarily.
3. Now that most people watch a lot of TV, how do you think this has affected relationships with neighbours?
I think TV watching has had a very bad effect on relationships between neighbours. In the old days, people would go out for a walk in the evening or sit outside their houses. They would make friends and keep up with what was happening in their neighbourhood. But now, many people just plop down in front of the TV in the evening and are couch potatoes. Having this kind of habit keeps people from being able to build close relationships with their neighbours and even members of their own family.
4. Do you think it's important to teach children how to have good relations with neighbours?
I think it is important for children to be polite to neighbours. If your children offend your neighbours, then it is hard for you to have a good relationship with your neighbours, because they will be upset by what your children have done. One thing that is important for children to learn in life is how to relate to others. It is actually a good opportunity for them to learn this in their interactions with the people they live close to.
5. How has the relationship between neighbours changed over the last 20 years?
I think that 20 years ago, people cared more about each other. I think that neighbours saw themselves as a kind of group to help each other. But now, with so much violence and dishonesty in the world today, I think many people are afraid to get involved with others. They don't know if they might be taken advantage of or get in trouble in some way. However, I think that inside, people want to find friends, and they want to love. As Mother Teresa said, "Everyone, no matter what colour or creed, wants to love and be loved." I believe that even though we may not be perfect, I think we all would like to live harmoniously with our neighbours and others around us.
Community. 6. What are some of the qualities of a good community?
I think the most important quality of a good community is to be unified. That doesn't mean that every single person has to think exactly the same thing, because that is not possible. But I think they should all have the same ideals. In other words, to be compassionate and concerned about each other, to want to be honest and trustworthy. I know this sounds idealistic, but if you only want to better yourself and live to make yourself rich or more comfortable, you soon find that nothing makes you happy anymore. But if you can incorporate giving into your lifestyle, then you do not lose the joy of living.
7. In China, are there many facilities for improving relations between neighbours?
Well, there are some, but not very many. In the old days, the people in China simply had time, and this helped to facilitate relations between neighbours. Spending time really means the most in almost any relationship. If you spend time to talk or listen, that goes far to build good neighbourly relations. Of course, having a place to go to mix and mingle with people your own age also helps. You can see these facilities springing up here in China. Old buildings. One. How do people in China feel about protecting historic buildings?
I think people are beginning to understand the principle that old buildings are sometimes, I don't say always, treasures to be preserved. Today, most people agree that if a building is an important part of history, then it should be well taken care of. But I think what's missing is the protection of the building's atmosphere. It's not enough to just keep the bricks and mortar from falling apart. You also have to be careful you don't ruin its appeal to visitors by having it overly touristy. The Forbidden City here in Beijing is a good example. It's an amazing place, but it's really boring now, because it has no atmosphere. It's so crowded with sellers, tourists, tour guides and shop vendors that you feel like you are just in a shopping street, not an ancient seat of imperial power.
2. Is it important to preserve old buildings?
Well, sometimes. Some old buildings are good to keep as reminders of the past, as long as they remind people what was right or wrong, not just that they existed. Some old buildings are just wasted space. If the building is a symbol of something good or important to remember about the past, then it should be kept. If it's ugly or in a place where something more useful to the people could be built, and it is not very unique or special, then I would say it's better to get rid of it.
3. Do you think an area can benefit from having an interesting historic attraction?
For sure. Most historically important places are tourist attractions. That can be good as tourism benefits the local economy. Also, attractions can give locals something to be proud of and a reason to live and work there. If the historic building or natural wonder is not a major focus or is too neglected and out of touch with the present, then such historic places lend a kind of dignity to an area. They show the past and present are well integrated, which suggests a vision and plan for the future.
4. What do you think will happen to historic buildings in the future?
I think there will be less of them, but the ones that remain will be well preserved. I think a lot of old buildings will become like little islands of the past in an ocean of a modern world. At least that's what I think will happen here in Beijing. I really don't know how historic buildings in other places around China will hold up. Probably a lot of them will lose their uniqueness and beauty to over-tourism. Others will simply fall apart and no one will even remember what they were or what importance they held. That's what time does.
Housing. 5. Compare old houses and modern houses. Which do people prefer to live in?
That's easy. Nearly everyone wants to live in a new house. Whatever appeal old houses have to the artistic or nostalgic mind, that appeal is not as strong as running water, electricity, central heating, and a well-functioning management. It's mostly the older generation, or my parents' generation, that prefers old houses to new. Among my own generation, if we can, nearly all of us will choose to live in a modern apartment.
6. How has housing in China changed compared to your parents' time?
Housing today means tall apartment buildings if you live in a city. In the countryside, I think it's mostly unchanged. Only the objects inside of the houses are different, but the conveniences widely available in modern urban housing are many. Better electricity, plumbing systems and heating. Many of these were rare before.
7. What changes do you think will occur in the future?
If the current trend continues, residential contractors will keep building the same style of buildings until some creativity enters the business. Modern housing in China is all the same, tall, identical apartment buildings around a central garden or courtyard, sometimes with a smaller building adjacent or built into the foundation of a few of the taller buildings. It will probably be many years before this trend is reversed. That's too bad, because a lot of what is being built today is wasting space and materials, but I'm hopeful that it will change, even if it takes a while.
8. What factors do people consider when deciding where to live?
Scenery, convenient transport, availability of stores and restaurants, noise or pollution levels nearby. The list goes on and on. Then, of course, there are the actual attributes of the apartment complex they choose, whether it has hot water and central heating, and what ventilation system is used. But in the end, the cost of living is the biggest factor. If one's income is high enough, then he can afford to be choosy about the other factors.
9. How do you think the climate of a place affects the way buildings are constructed? The design.
I don't think climate affects it that much. The outer design of a building can be pretty much the same, whether it's in a temperate, cold or hot climate. It's more the structure that matters. Buildings that are further north are generally built with more insulation and double-pane glass, although if the architect is really good, he will design a building that is in harmony with its surrounding nature and one which makes use of materials and the sun's light to keep the building naturally temperate. This is also good for the environment as it uses less energy to keep it cool or warm. Rooms and individuality. 1. Do you think children should have their own rooms?
I think that it is good for children to have a chance to share rooms with other siblings. Once they get a little older, many children like to have their own rooms and learn how to take care of them. I think it's good for them to have a chance to have both their own room and a shared room. They learn many good things from each situation.
2. How do children benefit from sharing a room with others?
They learn how to get along with the people they share a room with, and they learn to share their toys, which is very important later in life. They learn to share responsibility in keeping the room clean and neat. They have someone to play with, and don't have to be lonely. Someone who can be a close friend. I think that it is more beneficial for children to share a room than to be by themselves.
3. Do you think people have enough privacy today?
Privacy is often very important. To those people who like privacy, it seems they can never have enough and they will always want more. Others would rather exchange privacy for more protection. They don't mind having less privacy if they know that in exchange they don't have to worry about theft or being in danger.
4. What do you think of people who decorate their houses in a very flamboyant manner?
I think that they want to make a statement of their status when they decorate in a colourful and showy way. This may not always be so, as some people may just like the decor. Often the decoration is to show their artistic tastes. Because it is difficult to make a colourful decor match well, having a well-arranged and well-decorated house shows a lot of taste on the part of the owner.
5. Have the rooms in houses changed much compared to the rooms of your parents' youth?
The layout of houses and rooms are pretty standard and stay almost the same. One thing that does change is the material that the furniture is made out of. When my parents were young, almost everything was made out of wood, and sometimes metal. There was rarely anything plastic. Today, much of our furniture is made out of plastic, metal, and other man-made materials.
6. How do you think the climate of a place affects the way buildings are constructed? The design.
Well, in my view, climate has quite a lot to do with the way we design and build our houses. For instance, in places where it snows a lot, you find houses built with a steep roof so that the snow can't settle on and damage it. But in warm climates, the houses are often built with a veranda to keep the sun out of the rooms and to provide a cool place to sit.
7. How do you think rooms will change in the future?
I think that in the future, rooms will change to use more natural materials. There is a great demand for genuine wooden furniture, and it is very stylish to use furniture that looks like the furniture used in the past. I think it's a good change. Other than that, I can't see that much of a change in rooms, really.
Places for public use. 8. What kinds of public places does your hometown have?
In the place where I grew up, there were quite a few small parks and places to stroll around. There were not many playgrounds for children to play in, but my siblings and I liked to run and play games. We were very happy to play in the open area in front of our apartment. There was also a nearby field where we could play football and a track to run around. 9. Do you think it's important to have facilities such as public parks and playgrounds? I think that it is important to have places that are safe and clean for children to play in. It's good to have large open areas where both children and grown-ups can get good exercise outdoors in a safe environment. If nothing but skyscrapers are being built, then of course children are going to suffer. It is more important to have parks and playgrounds than some of the other facilities that are being built nowadays. 10. Compare public facilities, such as parks, in China today to those of the past. In the old days, there were not many parks or public facilities, and the ones that were around were often small and unkempt. The plants were not taken care of, and the ground was often dirty and littered. Today, more efforts are put into keeping the parks clean and the area free from litter. The plants are well taken care of, and emphasis is put on making the parks look pretty. 11. In your opinion, how will public facilities change in the future? I think that there will be larger and nicer parks made in the future. I think the parks will be made available to more people and easier to reach. I also think that there will be more playgrounds and better equipment. You know, in the future there might even be transportation to and from the playgrounds that would include free refreshments. Tourism. One. Is tourism an important industry in China? In my opinion, tourism is very big in China. I believe that it is very important to the Chinese economy. If it weren't for tourism, China would have to look for other ways to bring money into the country. Tourism not only helps to bring in money, but also helps to influence and modernize China. 2. How has tourism contributed to the development of your hometown, or the place where you live now, or China? Tourism has helped by making people more aware of the value of old buildings and famous places. Because of the attraction of these places, there is more of an effort to preserve and improve them. There is also more development to make tourists and travelers more comfortable. The hotels and hostels are improving their standards, and the restaurants are learning to cater to Westerners. 3. Has tourism had any bad effects on your hometown, or the place where you live now? Because of the rapid development and the expansion of cities, tourism will force many people to move out of their old, lower-priced homes. These people will have to find new, often more expensive apartments and houses. This may be difficult for them, and they may not be able to afford the new housing. Also, the construction workers who build new buildings and roads will be out of work when they are completed. This will cause a rise in unemployment. Accommodation when travelling. 4.
When people are travelling away from home, what choices do they have for places to stay? What kinds of hotels does China have?
There are many very nice hotels all around China. Almost every city will have at least one of the more well-known international hotels. There are also local hotels that are cheaper and economical. Then there are hostels and dorms where you can stay for a very low price for a longer time.
5. How have hotels changed, improved in recent years, or compared to the past?
I think the standard of hotels has risen in general. The standard hotel has nicer facilities and often more options as far as rooms and prices go. They are now put in more convenient places and also well distributed around the city. Hotel service has also gotten much better, as employees are aware of how important it is to treat guests well.
6. What facilities should a good hotel have?
I think a good hotel should have everything that people need to stay for a while. It should have a restaurant or some place where the people staying there could get food easily. It should have a few places for recreation and exercise, such as a gym, swimming pool, and sports equipment room. It should also have a business center with internet access, international phone service, fax, printer, photocopier, and computer.
7. What could be done to improve the environment, e.g. the appearance, in some hotels?
The hotels should be nicely and tastefully decorated. They should have a simple, efficient layout that does not confuse the guests. The outside should be clean, and the outside appearance should match the inside decor. It also would be an improvement to make sure that there are plenty of plants and trees.
8. What kind of people, what kind of personal qualities, are best suited to work in a hotel?
The most important qualities for working in a hotel are friendliness and consideration. When the staff of a hotel is friendly and considerate, the guests are well taken care of and happy. It is also important for the staff to be neat and clean. This will help them to make their work area and the hotel clean for the guests.
9. What can hotel service people, hotel employees, do to help tourists?
The most important thing is for the hotel employees to be able to understand the tourists and guests. Efforts should be made to make sure that most of the hotel personnel have at least a basic knowledge of English. It is also nice to have a few people who speak other common languages, or languages that are spoken by people who frequent the hotel. It is good to also be able to give directions to nearby tourist spots, or have a service to help tourists get to more distant ones. Healthy lifestyle. 1. How do Chinese people like to relax?
I think that one of the most common ways that Chinese people like to relax is to go out to a restaurant with their friends or family and enjoy a good meal together. Another way to relax for them is to simply go out for a walk and enjoy the evening or morning atmosphere. It's an excellent way to relieve stress. Chinese also like to read books, and the youth enjoy going to internet cafes and playing computer games.
2. Do you think most Chinese people lead a healthy lifestyle nowadays?
To be honest, it seems to me that we don't lead a very healthy lifestyle. We work a lot, are under stress, and often have to travel on crowded buses or subways. Sometimes the Chinese men in particular drink a little too much and end up with health problems. The way that we eat is not so good, with many foods being fried with a lot of oil.
3. What do Chinese people think about daily exercise? Is it considered important?
If you ever go by a health club and see all the sophisticated machinery there, One of the most outstanding things you will notice is that it is almost empty. Most Chinese people just don't use that equipment. They don't consider it very important. Now, of course, things are changing a bit, and you do see some Chinese people out jogging or working out, but it is a slow change. With the younger generation, exercise is changing, as you will see lots of young guys out on the basketball court for hours on end.
Leisure and work. 4. Do you think employers should provide recreational facilities for their employees?
It would be a good idea to do this. It would increase productivity because it would increase stamina and mental alertness. Exercise is good for you, and sometimes people working just get weary sitting at their desk for hours at a time. The employers don't have to provide facilities, but it would be in their best interests to do so, and help to lift the spirits of their employees.
5. Should employees be paid overtime for working on the weekend?
Well, if they didn't get paid, there might be a mini revolution. The weekends are very special to most people, and to have to work is a sacrifice as it is, and not to get paid would add insult to injury. On the other side of the coin, if the reason that they are working is that they didn't get the work done during the week, then they should come in of their own accord to finish this work, and the company shouldn't have to pay for this.
6. How do you think a person can find a balance between the time spent at work and the time spent on leisure?
They say all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Well, the same holds true in reverse. All play and no work makes Jack a very poor boy. Each has to be in its own place, a time to work and a time to enjoy life. Even if you enjoy your work, you should pull yourself away from it in order to have the proper balance in your life. Sometimes you just have to stop whatever you are doing, whether work or play, and do the opposite to have a healthy life. Many people these days are literally dying of overwork, while other people are wandering around day after day with nothing to do. It is a tough thing to do, but you have to discipline yourself to work and then play.